Good afternoon. I call to order this special meeting of the Scottsdale Unified School District. It is Thursday, May 9th, and the time is 3:03 p.m. It is also Teacher Appreciation Week, and we'd like to say thank you to all of our wonderful teachers for the excellence they bring to our classrooms every single day. Thank you. We will have a roll call starting from my right.
Jan Michael Greenberg.
Sandy Kravitz.
Allison Beckham.
And Patty Beckman. Board Member Perleberg is on her way. We do have a quorum. Well, anyway, please rise. Board Member Beckham will lead us in the pledge.
The flag seems to be kind of hiding back there.
Okay, thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Board Member Kravitz makes the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Board Member Greenberg seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes and the agenda is approved. We move now to information discussion item 4A, proposed issues for the submission to Arizona School Boards Association, ASBA, for the 2020 political agenda. Who's going to discuss this?
You were discussing the issue on the top. The proposal issue.
You present.
Okay, here we go. Just one moment. I have it. Where am I reading?
Just why don't you read what we're going to do, and then if you want to go ahead and pass it to me. That's what
Oh, I didn't have any questions. Where am I reading?
just maybe what the agenda item is,
Okay.
because it's what's in.
Again, we move to information discussion item 4A, the discussion of the proposed issues for the submission to Arizona School Boards Association, ASBA, for the 2020 political agenda. Board Member Beckham?
I was assigned to be the delegate for ASBA last year and still am serving. ASBA, the Arizona School Board Association, for those who don't know the acronym, has a advocacy group, and they put together every year a political agenda. They keep the existing political agenda, and then they ask for each board of their members' districts to review the items that are on that political agenda, and they ask us to rank them if we so wish to do, and then we can brainstorm if we would like to add any, or if anybody, individual members, has a suggestion as to an addition to that political agenda. We provide that to them. It then goes to the legislative committee of ASBA through the summer, and they come up with which will be the 2019 political agenda, or 2019-2020, I'll say, because I'm not exactly sure. And
It's for next year.
it's for next year. And they will ask us to approve the agenda at that point. And it looks like the timetable's been moved up, and it's Saturday, September 7th. We'll let them know by that date, and then the assembly meets and discusses it and approves it. So what they're asking us, and we received the letter and the list of political agenda in an email, so I'm hoping that everybody has reviewed it, and to see if anybody has any questions. Yes.
Board Member Kravitz?
Was it clear to, I wasn't sure what they were actually looking for, because this format's changed from in years past, so I called them to make it clear. And I spoke with, I think it was Gina in Chris Cotterman's office, and she said, we'll select the bullet points under each tab, or I called them tabs, heading, whatever, that you were most interested in. Because to me, these are very broad and could encompass so many things. So, you know, I just wanted to clarify that in case you weren't quite sure what we were supposed to be selecting from all of this stuff.
I will add just a little background for our new board members. When Board Member Kravitz and I joined 2 years ago, we did not go through this exercise. And whether it was formal or informal, it was just believed at the time that the Scottsdale Unified School Board did not want to get involved in the political process. And as a board member, we are elected by our taxpayers and represent them, and that it really wasn't the role of a board member to take a political stand, even though it is for public education, because we might be advocating for something that our taxpayers don't agree with. So in the past, we have decided really not to go through with this exercise. And, well, we go through the exercise and we voted that we would not submit our priorities last year.
We didn't submit priorities last year?
We did not, no.
We not submit priorities? For some reason, I thought we had. I know we didn't.
Michelle?
I recall that discussion, and I believe the board did decide not to.
Oh, okay.
Make recommendations. And when you talk about the political, I mean, they're usually pretty uncontroversial, like local control and things like that, but I do
There are
recall
a
the board
few-
remembering.
There are a
deciding
few that are more political, and it was felt that, just that really wasn't the role of our particular governing board. And so I wanted to pass along that view last year, but we have 2 new members, and the view can change.
Well, I
Member
appreciate,
Greenberg, yeah.
sorry, but yeah, thank you. I appreciate that rundown, and I appreciate Board Member Kravitz calling in to find out the specifics of what we were being asked to do, because I don't think that was clear. I thought it was the headings that we were approving with the headings, and because there were only 4 of them, I got very confused as to where the 5th heading was. So I do appreciate that. I would agree. I mean, we are elected officials. That's how democracies work, and we are supposed to do what we believe is in the best interests of the group that we oversee, the district and the taxpayers. And I don't see any reason why we shouldn't go through the process and submit a formal, our viewpoints on it. There might be controversial things in here. I generally agreed with a number of these bullet points. But, that's how I think all of our decisions are. Some people agree with us and some people disagree with us, so, yeah.
I would agree. So what is the process by which we do this then?
We basically, you've read it, and you just start to say, kind of, Jan, what are your 5 type priorities? Sandy,
Right.
what are
Didn't
yours?
we-
Barbara's?
Sorry.
And then we could see if they match,
Right.
and we can come up with
I thought we
setting a priority.
each submitted what we thought was, I know, I could be doing revisionist history, but perhaps your memory's better than mine. Did we each submit what we were interested in? And then we kind of discussed all the ones that we were interested in?
Sounds,
I don't remember going through each bullet point. And
No.
I don't
No, I'm not
recall
talking about
spending-
going-
Yeah, no,
I mean,
no,
just-
I'm not saying you
Yeah.
did, I'm just saying, yeah.
Well, the first decision I would think is that if we're going to do it and submit or not, and I would assume that's what we're discussing right now, but it could be kind of a cumbersome process if we're all sitting here saying, these are my priorities, these are
Right.
your priorities, okay, there's 3, there's 2, there's,
Well, it can be, yes.
That's what I'm
So
trying
I'm
to say.
asking
maybe
for
what
the
we
most
can do is-
streamlined way that people have done this in the past, in our recollection.
well, I was just going to say that it's information at this meeting, but on Tuesday, it's an action item. So if you want to go back and streamline the list among, each person, and then on Tuesday, we could bring each one's list and see which ones got the most votes, and we
Right.
can take those, and those would be our choices. And then we could vote on it on Tuesday.
And then the second piece is if anybody has anything that they would think that they would like to add.
I think that's
they
what
could
the 5th
send that in
tab is.
also.
I think that's what because there was 5 lines.
Right, there's 5, and then there's an additional 3 if there were, or 2, if there were
Yeah.
items perhaps not listed on here, I think.
Correct, that you think
That
would
we
be
thought
important.
maybe should be brought up to their attention.
So is this
yeah.
something that we could individually email in our top 5 and then put them for a vote on
We
Tuesday?
could give them to Sandra.
I think that's what we did.
Okay.
I think, I don't know if it was last year or the year.
In other words, we would submit it, and then we would say, okay, 5 people submitted this one, 3 people submitted
Correct.
this.
Yeah.
Correct.
And then we could
And then say, here's the majority as it lays out. Do
Right.
you all, and then make it an action item as in, this seems to be the consensus of the top 5. Do you all agree with that? And then move forward?
That,
I think there's only 4.
Or
No, there's 5 priorities, and then if they would ask just to limit it
No, I'm
to 2
saying, isn't there,
brainstorming
but didn't
ideas.
they give us 4 priorities?
Well,
And
that
then
is,
the 5th one is if we have to add,
no,
if we want to?
because
Oh,
I actually have the sheet to fill out.
Oh, okay, oh, okay.
So it's, and that's why I knew it was, you go through and you can look at those bullet points through those 4 categories.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There's, 4 categories, but
Categories
you can pick
With
5.
25, 30 bullet
Yeah.
points.
On each one.
I mean, there's some
We
of
don't need
these
to
are so broad, they could be consolidated and, you know.
Correct.
For me, some of them are like no-brainers and it's, you know, whatever. If you,
So-
You know, they're doing their due diligence when they have 200-plus members.
Right.
And they go through and my guess is that they use the priorities because maybe there's a consensus once they get all
Right, and then that
200
focuses their
members. And then they
efforts.
can have focus. And that's what they did last year when they focused. They broke it to the 4 categories because in the past, they didn't have those 4 categories.
So would it be more streamlined then if Tuesday, since this is just a discussion item today, we have 2 action items, the first one being, are we going to submit? Because we have to vote on that, right? Second thing, no?
no, we're not voting on it.
We're not voting
Whether,
today.
no,
today,
I'm
no,
saying
she's saying
Tuesday, as making an action item if we're going to submit, because we can't take a vote on this, this is a discussion item.
I think the item on Tuesday is approval. It's just approval of
So-
the
so I th-
submission.
So it would be
If I
combined
understand
then.
correctly, then, last year, what happened was, there was no approval,
Okay.
and therefore it wasn't submitted. Because the action
Right.
item, I believe, if I recall from what I read yesterday night, or when did we receive that, was that it's it's approval of a submission or something like that. It's.
Well, and that's my question,
Yeah.
is should it be separated out in a vote that we take a vote to actually submit, and then if we move forward, here are the top priorities as what we have all
Well,
entered?
It might save time if for some reason we believe there isn't a majority in favor of submitting, because I don't want to spend an hour discussing this and then turns out there's no vote in favor of submitting. So that might make sense.
Well, and I don't mind, because we're in a public meeting, to put out, I have no problem really submitting. I understand both sides of the issues, and to me, I can go either way, so I can go ahead and say we can submit.
I mean,
Well, we're not taking a vote right now.
No, but I'm just giving my.
Well, you know what, I want to go back and review our discussion from last year so I can better acquaint myself as to what the thinking was back then, what I was thinking, and, because,
I want to make sure we stick to the agenda
Right.
part of it, Michelle, and we don't do anything that wouldn't be following the agenda perfectly as it relates to a discussion item versus an action item and a vote. So,
You can certainly continue discussing how you want to approach this, but adding an item as to first whether you want to submit makes sense, and we can do that for you for Tuesday.
okay. But at the same time, then have prepared your priorities, so then that is the second piece. Because if we move from the one to the other, if we stop at the one, if it doesn't, the other is ready to go, should we move forward?
And if you want us to tally, you can individually write into Sandra or to me and tell me what your priorities are, and one of us will take a tally and report that on Tuesday.
Yeah,
Just individually, that's fine.
So perhaps a timeline when you're expecting each governing board member to send that in, maybe Monday at noon?
Is that sufficient?
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine. I'm trying to find the minutes from the meeting last year.
Okay, any further discussion? Do we all have clarity on that? We good? We good? Then we move on to our action items. 5A, approval of further revisions to the middle school and high school planning guides for the school year 2019-20. Dr. Sackos?
Board member Beck Penn, members of the board. Sandra, cabinet, you hearing me okay? That's on?
Yeah.
Tonight, I am here to share with you some additional recommendation for approval for the high school planning guide. As a reminder, the high school planning guide comes to the governing board in the fall. In this case, it came to the governing board November 8th, 2019, for information, and then it was approved in November of 13 in the information, or in consent. And at that time, Dr. Treat and Ms. Redner had shared with the board that they were anticipating additional language for some IB courses in mathematics. And we knew that from the IB organization. So we knew we were going to come back to you, and since we have this opportunity to come back, there's a couple more items that I want to discuss or share with you tonight and seek approval. So the additional revisions, one is an addition of technical math at Coronado. It's aligned to the engineering CTE program, and it's a dual enrollment opportunity through Mesa Community College. The second one is the addition of the IB courses that are at Desert Mountain, the math. And then the third one is the 8th grade transfer credit. So our first level courses taken in the 8th grade, Algebra 1 and World Language 1. So those are the three items I'm going to share with you today. You can read here the addition of the technical math. This is intended to be a 4th year math course. As I mentioned, dual enrolled through MCC. And the technical math is really real world application of math using the application of mathematics for the simple machinery. And that ties into the engineering course that's being offered next year for our Coronado students as well. So this will actually be an opportunity for an interdisciplinary approach with engineering and math at Coronado High School. Coronado High School is the only school that we're attempting this course, and as of right now, it looks like Mesa Community College is willing to waive the dual enrollment fee for all the students that are enrolled in the class. So we're very excited about this, a nice alternative to that 4th year of mathematics. The next 3 slides share the course description for the math inquiry or for the IB program. The diploma program is at the junior and senior level, and the MYP middle years program is 6th through 10th grade level. So the next 3 slides, you see this language that is right from the IB program. So any IB program, and that could be the MYP or the diploma program, the DP, must adopt these courses, the language, and put it within their high school planning guides or middle school planning guides. The second one here again is math HL1 analysis and approaches. That HL is higher level, and what's important to understand is these courses that are in the planning guide for IB do not replace any other math course. IB students still go through their trajectory. Some of them beginning Algebra 1 at the 7th grade, Geotrig, and on. Each IB student for part of the diploma program must take a certain number of SL courses or HL courses. So it is possible that students in the IB program are taking 2 years of math in their junior or their senior year. So these courses, again, from the IB the program, and the verbiage is the same across the world, literally the world, because of this is International Baccalaureate program. The other math course title, the applications and interpretation. Again, I won't read all those, but you can see here that this is specific just to Desert Mountain and to IB. We wanted to bring back clarification on 8th grade transfer credits. So currently, our cohort class of 2000, this cohort class is 8th grade class, and the previous classes prior have had an opportunity to opt in for credit and grade on their high school transcript courses, first level courses that are taking in the 8th grade level. So your Algebra 1 taken at the 8th grade, and your world language taken in the 8th grade. And for instance, Spanish 1. And so what we are recommending is moving forward, rather than students having to opt in before the start of their freshman year, we're providing an opportunity for families to opt in by the end of the 6th semester. Some of the criticism that we've received over the last several years is lack of understanding of what it means to opt in an algebra or a Spanish or world language course that is on a 4-point scale. And for students that, again, are worried about their GPA, these courses are not honors courses, AP courses, and so it does matter to some. Students and parents, I believe, don't fundamentally understand what that means until they have an opportunity to look at their transcript, to see the impact, to have discussions with counselors. And I think what's important to know is that, we want to challenge our students in the 8th grade to take higher level courses. And you may have a student in 8th grade that takes Algebra 1, challenges themselves, says, oh man, I really didn't do that well, and I want to go back in my freshman year and master the concept. There is no penalty for that. You don't have to opt in the grade. You don't have to retake it and get a repeat tag. It truly is, it's a risk-free environment at the 8th grade to take the course and then see what that trajectory is in high school. We encourage our students to take their 4 years of math in high school, but some students may have difficulty past that Algebra 1 if they've taken it, and they may want to count it their 8th grade year or free up their schedule for different types of opportunities, EVIT or other courses as well. So with that said, the only other question I had this week from a board member was specific to the Senate Bill 1184, and that was that financial literacy and personal finance management. I just want to let you know that the social studies curriculum lead and the teachers have been working diligently all year incorporating those standards in the economics classes, and the curriculum maps are being revised and will be fully implemented the 1920 school year. The language in the high school planning guide doesn't read specifically what I just said, but we would like to put some language in there that reminds everybody that this does incorporate the financial literacy and personal finance management. With that said, I'll answer any questions.
Any questions? Board Member Kravitz.
I have a question about the 8th grade transfer for credit. So currently, because we've had this discussion, I think, before, where does the 8th grade student get the credit, but just the grade wasn't transferring and considered part of the GPA?
So in the 1819 high school planning guide, the language was different from the 1819 middle school planning guide. One had indicated that you can transfer in the credit without the grade, but that you cannot do that. When you transfer a credit to a high school transcript, you can't just have no grade. There has to be a grade. And that could have been a pass-fail, that could have been an A, B, C, D, F. However, after extensive conversations with the high school planning guide group, middle school planning guide group, the respective principals at the middle school and high school level, it was our solid recommendation that, again, this is an opportunity for our students, again, encouraging them to take courses in a risk-free environment and then having that opportunity by the end of their 6th semester, before the end of the 6th semester. And it's before the end of the 6th semester because that's when we do class rank for the senior class going into the year. So we just felt it was important for parents and students to make an informed decision.
But currently, it says in the middle school planning guide, you can take this class and transfer the credit, but not the grade. And the grade isn't part of your GPA.
So there is conflicting language in middle school planning guide, high school planning guide, and it's our recommendation that this 8th grade cohort is the first one that gets to choose.
What does the high school planning guide say?
I don't have that language right in front of me, but I can certainly send that to you. One is different, and Ms. Redner, do you remember which one indicated what language? And the process for sending information out to families comes at the end of the school year, beginning of the summer, explaining this process. And so that has been what has been done in the past. But it's this 8th grade cohort class where, again, there was that difference in language versus, you know, the prior classes. She's frantically looking up.
No, and
the
I
language.
appreciate that. I'm concerned about, again, the consistency in each of the planning guides. And then I'm trying to think, you know, if you do not take, well, I guess what I'm concerned with is 8th graders, if they take it in 8th grade, they're given, I guess, an opportunity for a do-over that doesn't show up. If they take it again on their transcript, does it show as a retake?
No. So.
And if you take it in high school and take it over again, it would be it shows as a retake, correct?
If we automatically put those courses on their high school transcripts, then it would show a repeat tag. But if a parent chooses not to opt in that course and the credit and the grade, they can retake it. It's not a repeat tag, which is, again, what we believe is beneficial because parents and students can really make a decision around their 9th grade math course based on how they did in their 8th grade math. And
Right.
it's okay to step back and say, I challenged myself
Right.
during my 8th grade year, but I need to retake this because I need those solid foundations. And the math teachers will tell you it is the Algebra 1 that is most critical in terms of moving into the geotrig and the Algebra 2. So those are the very important standards.
This is our current, this is 1819 high school.
So the current language in the 18-19 planning guide, it says, as of 2011-2012 school year, 8th grade students taking Algebra 1 and or World Language Level 1 course may receive SUSD high school credit for these courses. Students enrolled in the district's foreign language immersion program may also elect to receive World Language credit during grade 8. This allows the student to start school with 1.0 credit for these courses toward their high school diploma. More information is available in the information or the backpack. So please consult with the guidance department for more information on how the 8th grade transfer credits affect the academic GPA. And this is the high school, and so, oops. Yeah, you wanted to look at middle school?
I'm trying to see how they differ.
Oh, yeah, it needs to be, we know that. It needs to be fixed. We're fixing it, and we're
Okay.
going to send that clarifying language out in a letter. Be mindful that the planning guides, again, planning guide committee will start meeting in August right away, and the recommendations come to the board as early as November, because course registration starts at the, counselors start talking to kids at the end of December, beginning of January.
And I appreciate that because I have 8th graders in Algebra 1 right now, and I can tell you the parents were conflicted about that because, for instance, with Math and Science Academy needing Algebra 1 in the 8th grade, there was some trepidation with some families about how that would all stack up when they got to high school if, like you said, it wasn't a class maybe that they should have been in, or, so I do appreciate you guys looking into this.
Yeah, no problem.
Any further discussion or questions?
Right, so we're looking for approval of these amendments to the high school planning guide, or these updates.
Board Member Beckham.
I move that we accept the revisions to the high school and middle school planning guides as recommended, and that the mandatory economics class will include the financial literacy language.
I second.
Okay, but I didn't listen to it.
Oh, good.
Did you write it down? No. Okay, you just did, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Okay, we move now to action item 5B, the Coronado Success Initiative, contract addendum for certified staff members.
Right, Board Member Beckman, members of the board, Sandra. As you recall, Ms. Marshall brought many contracts to the board a couple of months ago, one being the CSI addendum for Coronado Success Initiative. We received some feedback, made some changes. What you see on the overhead now, the blue parts are what you received last Friday in terms of the recommended changes. Since then, we've had conversation with board members and have added additional language, which is in the yellow. So I want to make sure that you know that what's in yellow is something that was not in what you were sent last Friday. So it's yellow on the screen, it's purple in your, in the board book. Did you find it? So let me just go ahead and go through.
No, I don't have that one.
No, you won't have this one. It's
You
just
won't
up on
have
the
this
board.
one, but
You
you
won't
have
have
one.
this one.
Yours will show purple. Purple.
So what I highlighted
No,
was
but
just,
even the additional B isn't on board book.
you don't have the,
When
but
you,
in-
when you do a quick view, it's not
It's
there,
not
but
there.
I'm just reading it now, so.
so sometimes on the track changes, you have to click on the left-hand side so it expands. Did you do that?
Yeah. Oh. I just looked at quick view and like you said, there's nothing there. So I'll go to the others. It's
So
okay.
I'm gonna walk through the changes that we added here. The obvious one here is we put the certified staff member instead of teacher because it's beyond the teachers that get the additional dollars that are working at Coronado. Those positions include the counselors, behavioral specialists. So we wanted to make sure that accurately reflected what staff member do get that are eligible for the dollars. I'm going to jump to A and then go to number 1. So the A, I added in there since after discussion that certified staff members will have an extra extended school day teaching students consistent with the Coronado High School's bell schedule. And I point that out there because Coronado's bell schedule currently is 13 minutes longer a day than our other high schools. And so that is, again, they're in class teaching students, so I wanted to provide that clarity. Number 2, again, just the language of certified staff member, same with 3. And what I added here on number 4, since the discussion is, we know that the above duties, as we indicated, result in a gross amount of $4,000. What was important to add from the feedback was certified staff members shall participate in 2 and 3 above. If a certified staff member misses 1 or more days, he or she shall make up an equivalent assignment as approved by the principal. And so while that was not written, this is our first year for 1920 putting in a contract, that has been the expectation during this year. Now we just have it written into a contract. Before jumping to C, some of you have asked, have we done the math with adding up the 6 extra duty days, the 4 evening community nights, the 13 extra minutes? And I wanted to let you know, if you do the math on these numbers, just the raw math on it, you will not get to $4,000. So it's important to point out that when our teachers and our certified staff are engaging in the professional development, the expectation is, because the professional development is always to improve instructional practices. So when we leave a professional development, we don't leave and say, oh, I have nothing to do. That was a great presentation today. It was a great workshop. We leave going with the idea that we are going to adjust our instruction, adjust our lesson plans, and incorporate things that are learned. And so that is very difficult to quantify the additional hours that teachers have to go back and plan and prep for project-based learning, which was, again, one of the focus last year. So this A piece is very difficult to quantify utilizing a $25 an hour or a $30 an hour number. $25 an hour It is our practice that that's what we pay teachers when doing professional development. When they're working with students, we pay the teachers $30 an hour. So again, if you were to do the math, it's not going to 1, 2, and 3 is not going to come up to the 4,000, but it is the expectation that there's more work that goes into improving instruction than just sitting in the professional development or going to the community nights. Now we'll jump to C. C, you can see where we put certified staff member must design an intervention or academic activity to be conducted outside of the normal contracted day. Such interventions or academic activities must be submitted to the principal for approval in advance. Once approved, certified staff member will earn up to, so we added the up to, because again, for a variety of reasons, a certified staff member may not be doing the same amount of time, up to that $3,000. And that $4,000 of the $3,000 is what we've budgeted for. So they can earn up to that $3,000 amount by participating in an intervention or academic activity. And that must be approved by the principal in advance. So that one is the hourly, whereas A is not the hourly. They are participating in more professional development, but they're still doing things outside of those PD days to improve instruction, thus more work. With that, it's just the following is just the certified staff member replacing teacher. And with that, are there any questions?
Okay, I'll start first. Going to, well, right, I'm looking, but mine is different, obviously,
Sorry.
so,
I've got copies of the
okay,
updated
B.
one.
For the above duties, the district shall pay the gross amount of $4,000. And so I know we talked about it being difficult to measure and that the math didn't add up, but if I'm a teacher or a certified staff member, and I come to you and I say, you owe me $4,000, I've done 1, 2, and 3, what are you going, how are we going to say, yes, but you didn't provide that extra? How are we going to make sure they have an understanding of that extra professional development? We've been very clear so many times that we have to have things laid out, or that we will have certified staff members question it. So my concern is there'd be some little bit of a communication gap on what we exactly expect them to do to earn that $4,000 and the additional, that's between that math.
Board Member Beckman, great question. In terms of incorporating best instructional practices at Coronado, and I give the example of the project-based learning, that was the goal this year. And the goal was to see, once teachers had that their instruction actually changed. The principal then, with their walkthroughs and with their evaluation, progress monitors whether or not they have done it or not. So in terms of the implementing these best practices in the classroom, that's how we know we were doing it. And there's that coaching piece of, you need to be incorporating these different ideas. You need to submit your lesson plan, et cetera. And the other point to that is that this year, what we did is paid the teachers in 2 pays. So semester 1 stipend, a semester 2. That allows the principal to then say, okay, you have not completed a portion of it, you're at risk for not getting your additional dollars. We haven't come up with a formula to, what that might look like, but we're very hopeful that our teachers will engage in the expectations in which their contract specifies. Did it answer your question?
It does. I still can't completely get around someone coming and saying, I worked, number 1, I worked the bell schedule. Number 2, I did those 6 duty days. Number 4, I did the evening community engagement nights. I'm good, right? I would love to see a little bit extended definition of the expectation. That's
Okay. And some of the things that, and perhaps, I don't know if we want to add it up here now before we approve it, that we can add to it, but maybe perhaps we add something that, additional time will be spent outside the training days to adjust and enhance instructional practices. Is that what you're getting at?
It has to be approved in some way. Yeah, so someone has an understanding that they have extra that they are required to do to earn that $4,000. Does that make sense? Board Member Greenberg?
That doesn't make sense to me unless, I'm not quite sure what we're trying to achieve here. 1, 2, and 3 seem like very clear-cut
Well, I can
objectives.
explain it. My question was centered around if you take just simple math, and it's 13 extra minutes a day, correct, is what we're talking about? 13 extra minutes a day, and you do rough math with that from a compensation standpoint. And number 2, if you add 6 extra duty days and you just say those are 8-hour days, you get 48 hours. Number 3, even if you said they were going to work 5 hours on each evening, that's another 20. So 68 hours plus 13 minutes for $4,000 puts us like in the $50-something an hour range. So the math doesn't add up.
So-
And she was saying there's extra additional that's required to hit that $4,000 mark to earn that. And so I would like to see that defined.
Oh, well, yeah, well, in that case, okay, that makes sense to me. If there are more things they're supposed to be doing to earn that $4,000, then it should be set out there. My understanding from reading this the first time was that those were the 3 things that earned you that $4,000, but
I agree.
I think my understanding from what you said was a little different, though. My understanding from what you said was that the additional preparation that certified staff members conduct every day in preparing to do teaching and interventions, whatever it is that they're doing, it's assumed that they're still doing that for that extra time. But if if it is separate and distinct objectives that they need to be achieving, then that, I would agree, then that should be listed in there.
Do you think this language helps capture what we just discussed, that additional time will be spent outside training days to adjust and enhance instructional practices? And I will tell you that that is with any professional development we do for our teachers. We just don't leave professional development and say, okay, we're done. We're saying, wow, here's a new idea for student engagement. And so as an example, again, for the work with ASU was project-based learning. So that, of course, what administration was looking for this year was adjustment to instructional practices to enhance and incorporate project-based learning.
And I guess this is a question for teachers and principals and other staff, but do teachers and other staff produce reports of what they've done insofar as, this is what I've learned, and I've actually tried these things out, and this worked and this didn't, but here's what I've been up to? I mean, I assume they do on their self-evaluation forms or something, that they explain what work they've been doing, which includes that incorporation of.
I think Principal Palatucci's happy to answer that. Governing Board. So this year what we did is we had basically the problem-based learning and the PDs on the Saturdays. And then they had time to go back and work on their PLCs, and they would produce a lesson plan to me and the admin team that we would look at and review and then have discussions on that. So that's one way they went back and implemented. And then really, I was just reflecting with Dr. Sackos today, we have seen growth in the first best instruction we've seen, and that's taken a lot of time for some of our newer teachers to develop those skills. We've seen exponential growth in our teachers. That's not measured here, but it is measured on their evaluations. If that helps.
Yeah, so there's that, I think that's what we were getting to, is that there is a clear evaluation that you're doing to assess, are they implementing that PD and everything, so.
There's the informal classroom walkthroughs.
Right.
Checking for it and where that coaching happens, and then there's a formal evaluation through X amount of observations and a summative, at the end of a year, at the end of the school year.
And I think due to the kind of the attention that's on our teachers and with the initiative, we've really evaluated them more. I think we had talked about it at another board meeting. Every teacher at Coronado got a formative evaluation. I don't think that happened at other schools. So they had a formative eval with us in the first semester. And then they're doing their summatives now. As I went through, some of my teachers had up to 7 evals with me. So that's very different from just a typical school.
Board Member Greenberg.
And to Board Member Beckman's point, if it's split up over, it's 2 separate stipends for each semester, and then if you determine in one semester a specific teacher has done exceedingly well, has certainly earned it, but then in a different semester that teacher has not, when you've been doing your informal walkthroughs or looking at their evaluations or their proposals to you, has not maybe been as focused on that, or has been, whatever the case may be, you would then not issue that stipend?
Correct. So this year I kept kind of qualitative and quantitative data on the teachers, and the quantitative was really on the hours and put it into those spreadsheets. So before we submitted the names for the stipends last semester, I went through to see who had met it. And then we didn't have a contract last year, but I typed out something on Word for them, which gave them options for makeup, and they worked on that. Just to tell you, we submitted the names 2 weeks ago for stipends, and there were 8 teachers that had not met their obligations. So we have not submitted their names yet until they do adequate makeup with me. And that goes with what they've missed. If they've missed community events, they do community engagement to make up those hours. If they missed professional development, they do professional development for those hours.
And should it therefore be made clear in this then, that that is how the system works, that their stipends may be withheld or not issued? Yeah, there's a fly. I don't think that's quite, it's slacking. We've not gone insane. But should that be made clear then, that those could be withheld just in case somebody does come forward and say, well, I might not, you might not think I've done it, but nothing in here says that my stipend would be withheld or anything like that.
Yeah, I actually have a couple of, if I can type.
Oh. And it's not black and white. Again, the point is we want them to engage in this, and we want them to grow, we want them to learn. So just like the teachers that are deficient right now, we're working with them on an individual plan to make that. I'm just not saying, no, you don't get the stipend. I'm saying, if you're willing to do it, I'll work with you.
Madam President, members of the board, one thing I was noticing as we were talking is we have certificated staff members shall participate in 2 and 3 of that. We really want them to
Yeah.
participate in all 3.
Right.
And then this next sentence is really meant to modify the 6 days and the 4 days. So I just want to fix that. But in addition, this last one that Dr. Sakos just added, I would say something more like this: certified staff member shall spend additional time. And then I have a question for our experts here about how we might quantify that and also talk about the consequence of not earning that full 4,000.
Yeah, I don't really, I mean, I know we want to get this done because it's important. I think we all would agree that we'd rather get it done right and not make a mistake that puts us in jeopardy or, unfavorably harms the teacher. So if we need to go back, tonight and tomorrow and then send this to us for approval on Tuesday,
We can certainly do that.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying we can't fix it here, I'm just putting that out there.
Well, and I can see, we spent considerable time talking about this last time on the expectation part versus kind of what seemed optional and how this program was designed initially. And so even using that term, certified staff member shall, is it will they or shall they? Is that an expectation of them that they do 1, 2, 3, and 4? Or, because you just had a dialogue up there about how we certainly expect and we hope they will. I want to have a clear understanding, and I would hope they would want to have a clear understanding of the absolute expectation of them to earn that $4,000. Does that make sense?
Shall and will, it says they shall, so it's a.
Must?
It is a must,
Okay.
as opposed to a may. That's how, shall
Right.
and will. Shall is usually used for using I and we, and will is usually for he, she, it. But anyway,
And I'll say, I did kind of start these conversations with my staff at the beginning of this semester, and the expectations were pretty much laid out in the past. It was optional for some staff. Some staff did not participate in CSI, and I made it very clear in February before contracts came out that this is what I expect from you guys, plus my vision in general. So the why I
I
made
know
it
the
the way.
why I made it.
You know, basically, this is the place for you, or I'll help you find a new place. And that's the conversation in February, and everybody who's still with me, I believe, is on the right track for next year.
Board Member Kravitz?
Well, I was just looking back at what the original expectations were for CSI, and there were 8 professional development days and 2 Saturday trainings per quarter, which is different than what we're proposing now. Different, it doesn't necessarily connote something negative, but I'm concerned that this program, because this is an acute situation that needs to be addressed, that we are providing the services and the support for the students, because this is ultimately what it's all about.
So Board Member Kravitz, it's important to know that the initial proposal for CSI and the components that are listed in that initial presentation were not the expectations that were adhered to in the first year. And there was a discovery when Ms. Palatucci came that last fall to realize that there were some differences in what was initially put out there, and that is where she came to us with, I want to put an addendum in place to outline the expectations, because it's only fair that our teachers know exactly what we're expecting of them. So she did her best this year to hold the expectations, and after, in year 2 of CSI, and then really tighten it for year 3.
Right, and I don't question that. My comment has more to do with the time, and I should clarify by saying quality time in terms of implementing this program, because they were getting the certain amount of money based on this amount of investment of time in the program. And it seems that what we're suggesting today is different than, and is not
Well, for clarification.
is not the same amount of time, and again, I do want to stress quality versus quantity, because it's not necessarily the be-all and end-all, but it seems like I want to make sure that our teachers are getting the training that we need in order to move our students forward, and I don't know, I'm concerned that because this is time that, it doesn't seem as much time is being invested, that are we going to get where we need to be in terms of bringing our students up to the levels that we're expecting?
Coming into year 2, Ms. Palatucci and I worked with her hard on this. There was no evidence that all of these things that were listed initially did occur.
No, I know. That's why I'm saying I want to make sure they do occur.
Oh, so yes, so that,
Will what we had originally envisioned be occurring? I don't see it here. Because like I said, there were 8 professional development days and 2 Saturday trainings per quarter was what the board members at the time, that was our expectation. That it didn't happen is not a good thing.
And I
Trust
will
me.
say, sorry,
Yeah, oh, no, it's okay.
I was gonna say, they got a lot of PD last year.
No, I
They got
know.
a lot of different
I know they're-
topics,
right.
a lot of different speakers. We had a lot of focused PD this year. I really feel like I'm in a place with my staff now that I have some leaders that have emerged, and the PLCs are getting stronger, my department chairs, my TILs, that we're in a place where they can kind of help me design more targeted interventions and targeted programs for the students. So that was kind of the reason of splitting it into 2 separate things. They're still going to have the PD. We're working on that right now. I've put together a committee. But I've done a lot of surveys, and our teachers have a lot of PD. They feel a little beaten with PD.
Okay.
So I want to make sure we have
Fair enough.
meaningful PD moving
Fair
forward.
enough.
But this-
That's
yeah.
fine.
This helps me target it a little bit, and then also empowers them to go out and design some projects. This goes back to our work with the ASU design team they've been doing for 2 years as well. I think our teachers are ready.
Okay, and the other part of that was there were 2 Saturday trainings per quarter, or there were I thought they were also available for students on Saturdays. I may be mistaken on that. My concern is that the teachers are available to the students, and I don't mean anything critical of teachers when I say that, but that was part of this program, to try and reach students where they are. Some students can stay after school, some can't, some can come in on a Saturday. So will teachers be available to students on Saturday as what was originally envisioned?
So they haven't been in the past, but I have one who's already come forward with a plan for a Saturday school that's not punitive, but is there to
Right.
help and support. So, and that'll be in part B here, where teachers, and I know that there's been some early discussions about, you know, AP prep courses or different things on a Saturday. So the intent is still the same with professional development, our teachers learning the best instructional practices and incorporating them, and providing our students with interventions and enrichment opportunities that meets their schedule. Because we know that, you know, again, after school does not meet everyone's schedule. It could be the weekends, there's time embedded throughout the day, it could be before school, so we need to make sure that we meet the needs of the students, and that is still the intent of this.
Thank you.
Board Member Greenberg?
With paragraph B, the additional portion that we just put in about reduced proportionately, should we state who decides that, or?
Yeah, we've left most of the decision-making up to the recommendation of the principal. I think that would still be appropriate. And I, you know, like, as you said, doing this on the fly, I do think we may want to refine it and bring it back to you all on Tuesday night just to clean it up. But Amy, does that make sense for you to make those recommendations? How have you been working with payroll and HR on these? It's been you recommending
It's been me,
and.
yeah. I've worked
and
closely
them.
with payroll,
Okay.
HR, in addition to our teachers.
Okay, so that's what makes sense, okay. Does it make sense to get any more specific about that proportionality? I'm not sure it does, in terms of, you know, hours or what's a day worth or that kind of thing. That's the more difficult question. We might want to talk to payroll before we bring it back on Tuesday about how that might work. Unless, Jeff, do you have a thought about that? Okay. Not to put you on the spot.
Okay, any further questions? Board Member Beckham?
I voiced my opinion because I've had conversations with you. As I'm torn because I have some real reservations about these strategies meeting the goals that are intended. And I will say, I understand that the goals 2 years ago have been somewhat changed because the CSI was not rolled out as, it wasn't that it wasn't rolled out. It was rolled out, but it didn't meet the achievement that it thought it would meet when it thought it would be hiring veteran teachers. And that it was discovered that the veteran teachers, not as many veteran teachers could be accepted. So those goals changed. And I don't know that the contract is the place for that, because this really is more of a contract, because it's an addendum to the contract. This is what has to be met. I completely agree, it needs to be clear, so that there isn't any question that a teacher isn't coming up going, I don't understand this, because this is the time that we need to get this right, and I'm in full support of that. Because it is just the contract, what I think is missing, and we hear it from this board, is what are those strategies that you're going to employ based upon this outline, if you will, that are then going to meet the goals that you've set up. And we're going to see the outcomes that we were hoping for 2 years ago when we approved the CSI program, if you will. And so I've been struggling with, do you put that in this contract, or do we leave the contract more broad? But then if we don't put it in the contract, we come up empty, which is why you're getting all these questions that you're getting. So I'm wondering if we do the contract for the teachers that gives very clear, concise, this is what you have to do to meet it, but then there is another document that maybe goes into a little bit of explanation on how this is going to meet the goals that you've set up. How are they going to be measured? you know, really what we're looking for. And I think that this comes into play especially in B, which is new, that we haven't had the last 2 years. And so that we can get an understanding of, after the fact, it's after you've approved, what are these interventions and what are these academic equivalence programs that you're going to be implementing, and what are they going to achieve, hopefully, right? And then if we achieve them. So we'll have something a year from now that we can actually look back and say, hey, did this initial plan that you're making this spring meet the expectations that we were hoping to? That will then give us an idea too, if this additional $7,000 stipend, that we achieved the value that we thought that we would. Because I don't see how we can, if you look at it purely from an economic standpoint, so that's one of the talks that we had, that you can do that. Because of the amount of time, additional time you would be asking of these teachers. So that's why there is some gray area there, and when you add that 3.4, that's kind of that grayness, right?
And Board Member Beckham, I want to add that the level of specificity that you're talking about in terms of strategies, objectives, timelines, measurements of effectiveness are all embedded in Coronado's continuous improvement plan. And when I looked at the past, my past notes when we were up here, when Ms. Ibarra and Dr. Froehler did the presentation on the K-8 Coronado Learning Community Success Initiative, my notes indicate that we're coming back to the board in August or September with the data to show you exactly that. So that is the timeline that we established, and it needs to be in the fall because of the timeline in which we get the AZ merit results. So, and that level, again, specificity is in the continuous improvement plan.
So I guess what I would like to ask is if you could send me that plan so that I can, not that I need it, well, I wouldn't mind having it since you've got it available before Tuesday, just to look over it and see what those goals and the measurements are, just to see if I can relate them or if I have more questions.
You found me.
Fly made it back to the east
Board
side,
Member Kravitz.
west side.
Since we will have consistent leadership next year, since Amy's returning, can you bring us what, and CSI has somewhat evolved and is basically new. Can you bring us what the plan is for CSI? And I think that would help us have a better understanding of how this contract feeds into that, because, you know, how is ASU and their resources, you know, working with the teachers at Coronado? What other activities or programs are being implemented as part of CSI? I think that would help me understand how this supplemental contract fits in with what's going on and what CSI currently is and will be next year.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, it was a little rough jumping in July.
Oh,
but our
I'm
teachers
sure it
did
was.
get that by August. What we did is I kept track in a Word document, and it was, they had the dates they were expected to be there. The extra dates were figured out by August and what we were doing on those dates. So I had that plan. But just like we expect our teachers to evaluate data, monitor and adjust, I need some fluidity there to see what's working, what's not working, and adjust with the teachers as well. But they did have that, and I would be happy to get that together this summer, because I do have the summer to plan for Coronado. I have some committees together to work on professional development, to work on the school improvement plan. So we're gonna have some really great stuff by August.
Right, yeah, no, I want to know what your plan is, since you are coming back and there'll be consistency of leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think our goals are really good. We did present the SIP plan, and I'll send it to Melissa to send out as appropriate. But the goals for CSI, when I went back and read some of those past presentations, the initial goals for success were that every student would apply for the FAFSA and every student would apply for college. I think our metric for success is a little more deeper when we talk about increased AZ merit scores, increased community involvement, those types of things. So I feel good about our school improvement plan.
Okay, thank you.
For the record, Board Member Perleberg has joined us, and Board Member Greenberg.
Yeah. Working off of what Board Member Beckham said, I would say that there is obviously a difficulty in assessing these types of matters from an economic standpoint. And in many ways, I've kind of equated this to trying to assess bonuses. You know, school districts in the past that have tried to provide bonuses for success by teachers, and why that's not really worked out and everything, just because students obviously are not with the same teacher every single year, and all these things. There are a lot of factors here. But for me, personally, I thought the more important portion of the two dollar amounts was paragraph C, because I think a lot of that, you know, kind of a combination with, but, you know, with the teachers designing interventions and academic, you know, additional academic, I thought that was really, you know, an important portion of the community outreach, you know, building relationships with students, getting them into classrooms, helping students that are struggling. I mean, that was, from a CSI perspective of that deep dive, for me, I thought C was the more important one. And I don't know if the argument should be that the dollar amounts might be reversed or something, if that might, because I know Board Member Beckman was concerned about there's no real equating $4,000 to those first three items is, I guess, on a per hour rate far too high. Perhaps that is a better way of analyzing it, and perhaps you can speak to why you divided up the dollar amounts in this way.
Yeah, absolutely. So initial thought was to working with the teachers this year. They do put in a lot of extra time working on that professional development, working on implementation in their classroom. Our teachers that are rock stars are there very late. I see them when I'm in on the weekends. They are there constantly. And that's sort of what we're pushing towards. So I want to reward that type of, you know, dedication to our students. And then the extended bell schedule is also a little longer than just that 13 minutes, because what we've done is we've adapted the whole bell schedule. So we've shortened passing periods, and we've added that 30 minutes of rise. So compared to the other 5 high schools, our teachers have a shorter lunch and shorter passing periods. The workday is still the same, but they have that additional 30 minutes. They're doing that targeted intervention built into their school day. So that was also a factor when I was looking at the amounts.
Right, and that wasn't, my question wasn't concerning whether they were doing the work, just that it wasn't defined to where if someone looked at the document, you would say, this is the definition of why they're earning that $4,000, that it was a little loose, from my understanding. So, Board Member Perleberg?
And apologize for coming late to the conversation, but thank you. I'm trying to catch up here. All that I'm hearing is kind of correct in that when we began the concept of Cornell Success Initiative, the whole idea was to create a different contract, different set of expectations for the teachers who would be employed at Coronado versus the other 4 high schools. That was just the understanding that we had to invest these dollars into our teaching staff and our leadership there on that team, and increase their contract, basically. I mean, what was expected of them in their contract would be higher, and certainly in more of time specifically, but also expectations in their investment in the academic improvement of the district by the programs that they put in place, or you know, so I think I'm comfortable with just that being in this addendum as opposed to what the interventions are going to be, or, I mean, because that does seem very separate. This should be about their time and their their skill levels and their expertise. That is a higher set of expectations than our other high schools, and we're paying extra dollars for that. So I think what I'm hearing you say, though, is that this 4,000, it is because you have those 6 extra days that are not in the other contracts of our other high school teachers. We have 4 evening community engagement nights, extended school day. All of that would, I assume, generally equate to, if you were to do somewhat of assessment of hourly or something of our teachers, it's closer to 4,000 than 3,000 is my, is, do you understand what I'm
I
saying?
believe so.
You believe so. And then, so then, this other, and just correct me if I'm wrong, because I read C as, they earn 3,000 with the approval of an intervention activity. And it does depend on how many hours they put into that activity. So is it an up to 3,000? And I apologize if this was already delved into. Is it up to 3,000?
Yes.
But if hourly, has that been changed?
They've
Okay.
added up to,
Okay.
from what you had.
Okay. So,
You want
okay.
this bigger, or you guys, can you see it okay?
So will the idea be that the teachers are kind of clocking their hours specific to this activity?
Yeah, so I've actually created an application, and it's still in the draft stages, but that they can put their ideas. I'm really big with collaborating with the teachers. I want to be in the classrooms, I want to be with the teachers, so this gives me an additional opportunity to help them improve. So they write down their idea, they fill out the information I've asked for. One of that is how many hours, and then we sit there and we collaborate to make it better, and to make it, what it needs to be for our students. But yes, they would track that,
Okay,
and we would hold it accountable.
okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, so is there any further questions or discussion? Board Member Greenberg?
Sorry, one last point. Just like we changed paragraph B to include this proportionality and assessment, should we also have an assessment clause in C? I assume if I'm being straightforward here, if a teacher or if any certified staff member is going to take the time to put together an intervention, I'm going to assume that they follow through with it. But even so, should there be something in there where that once it's approved and they're implementing it, that there's some form of assessment that they are actually doing it, or should
So I've been working with payroll kind of on that accountability piece. We've
Mm-hmm.
talked about the possibility of doing a clock-in system with an EPAR. We've talked about
Mm-hmm.
timesheets, but there would be something like that. I don't have that piece figured out with the district, what it'll look like. But
Okay, any further questions, discussion? So are we going to vote on this on Tuesday? So how do we proceed with this then?
You can table it for
Yeah.
today, and we'll bring it back on Tuesday.
Okay. I move to table this action item, the Coronado Success Initiative Contract Addendum for certified staff members until Tuesday, April 14th. Is that correct? That's the date?
May.
Oh, May 14th. Tuesday, May 14th.
feels like April
Um,
14th.
Do I have a second?
second?
Board Member Greenberg, second. All in favor?
Aye.
I just want to
Motion
say thank you
passes.
guys for the discussion. Thank you for always including
Thank you.
me up there. I'm super excited for next year and super excited for the
Thank you.
planning. So I'll see you guys on Tuesday.
Great, thank you. Okay, I don't think we have anything else, so I make a motion to adjourn our special meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Board Member Kravitz, seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned at 4:16 PM.
Oh, that's a quick one. Quickest meeting we've ever had. How about that?